What is taking this so long to load up? There it is. Okay. Uh, all right. It's the Unapologetic Podcast, Politics Edition. I am with some very heavy hitters that I like a lot. They're friends and family and people I've been knowing a long time. So I'm excited about tonight. Unapologetic Podcast on all podcast platforms and all social media platforms. Everybody here knows each other and has met each other at some point in life. So we don't need to go with a major introduction. But coming to you live from the trash state of Georgia, it is the Reverend Dr. Ian Chappelle. Coming from the DMV, we have Mr. Josh Jackson. Coming from the Beverly neighborhood in Chicago, we have Jamal Williams, and we have my favorite uncle in the building today, Tony G, live from the Gold Coast. He's live from the Gold Coast, Chicago. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to talk politics tonight. We are 1 week away, less than 7 days away from a historic election, November 5th next week. I don't know. They always say this is the biggest election in history every 4 years. So I don't know if
You're right.
all excited about that. But we have Kamala Harris running against former President Donald Trump. And we have some very eclectic views on this election. And as I asked Tony to remind me that we are definitely voted for Senate and House and judges as well. So everybody get out and vote. Doesn't matter who you vote for, even though it does matter who you vote for. Just make sure you get out and vote. So I'm going to start with a simple question. And I want to start with you, Tony, because you are the eldest on the line today. And I want you to tell us, why do you vote? Why is it important for you to vote? Oh, okay. Tony, why is it important for you to vote? You're live. Okay. We're gonna move on. We have some difficulties.
Okay, because I've been hearing some. It's been static. So
no, go ahead. I can hear you now.
But
Tony, you can hear me?
We all have voices, and voting is one of our ways of letting people know what's going on and hearing our voice. And I believe that's so it's important in that aspect.
Okay. Jamal, what about yourself? Thank you for your service. You're a former military man. Why is it important for you to vote?
Thank you. Thank you, Goodwin. Thank you, everybody, for being here this evening. I think this is a most important discussion. The reason why I vote, quite frankly, is because, and I voted every time since I was able to vote, is because there are people and forces who would move to deny people like myself the opportunity to vote. So I vote in defiance, quite frankly, to individuals who would, quite frankly, deny me that opportunity to vote. So, and I know a lot of people who are from where I'm from, who come from the same lineage, weren't afforded that opportunity. So me, I vote in defiance. Thank you.
Ian Chappelle, what about yourself?
Well, thank you for having me this evening, and it's very good to see everyone, especially Jamal, been a long time. Voting, I'm persuaded, is a way. Well, to kind of echo a little of what Tony said, it is your voice, and it is your voice to help guide the direction of the country, to help guide some of the politics and policies that you back, and how you want to see your country. Raphael Warnock said it's a form of prayer, and how you funnel um, your intentions. Thank you, son. You're welcome. So, it not that I'm, you know, I don't agree with the statement in its totality, but I appreciate the gist of what he's saying, and it's a way to formulate how you want your country to look, not just to yourself and to your neighbors, but to the world. So that's why I think voting is important.
Okay, that's good stuff. Josh Jackson, what about you?
Well, thank you for having me. I was just on here last week.
Well,
So Jamal and Mr. Ian, it's good to see you all again. Um, well, the reason why I vote is because I feel it's my civic duty,
Come on.
and also uh, my participation. You know, democracy is a participation sport. Since we in the era handing out participation trophies, you know, so democracy is the first one we're all inclined to participate in, and voting is the way you do that. But you know, my civic engagement does not stop there. Um, I also will pull up to a town hall, a county commissioners meeting. I'll write a postcard, make a phone call, um, and also I'll do a nice little email to some congressional chief of staffs, you know, and I also, you know, put my money where my mouth is. So, candidates that kind of support my interests, you know, you donate $25, $50 a few times to them, so they'll also remember you by that, and also that, you know, as a constituent, they'll recognize you, and then your opinion and your views will have more weight with them. So I take a two-pronged approach: one, casting the ballot, and then also being engaged and letting you know that I'm watching what you're doing, and I'm
That's right.
definitely intrigued about the policies and the content of the bills that's being voted on.
That's right.
Yep.
okay, thank you for that. It is, and I really would like for you all to kind of stay specific to this and not move forward. There is an unwritten rule to vote black. And in this election, in this presidential election, there is a black person, there is a black woman that is running to be the first female president of the United States. Um, I'll start with you, Jamal. How important is it for you to vote just because someone is the same color as you?
You know what? That's it. Thank you, Sir Goodwin. That is an important question, quite frankly. And I know I don't call you Sir Goodwin very often, but I will tonight. Um, Look, I do believe that there's some. Again, a lot of people say that a lot of people who are skin folk and always kin folk, and I do believe that. I do believe that. So with me, I don't believe that we as a black people, black Americans, should be beholden to any party or vote for anyone just because we're black or they're black. I do believe that we should take our time to determine what makes sense to us. I think as black Americans, we quite frankly have all the other concerns that other people have in terms of safety, education for our kids, economics. And so we should make our choice on that. The Democrats, we should not be beholden to the Democrats. nor should we be beholden to the Republicans. So I believe personally that we should make the choice depending on where we stand and where we are, personally. That's my choice.
Okay, that's good stuff. Ian Chappelle, uh, you are from Georgia, raised right here in this good city of Chicago and DeKalb, and you're back in Georgia, where there's a lot of black people and a lot of slaves were brought to that state. Um, do you feel like it is an unwritten rule to vote black? Do you feel obligated to vote black?
Well, I personally definitely don't feel obligated to vote black if your policies are not in line with my ideology. Just because, as Jamal said, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, and just because we look alike doesn't mean that our lives align. So I'm going to vote with the party that aligns with my values.
There you go.
So if that's Democrat or Republican, that's the way I'm going to vote. And I'm going to use my ideology. I'm going to use my pockets, where my status is. All of that is a combination of how I'm going to vote. So, and I was almost a teenager when I moved to that raggedy, cold city of Chicago. That a dreadful city.
Dreadful.
I enjoyed my state while I was here, and I'm very, very happy to be back in the raggedy state of Georgia.
That's Ian Chappelle. I want to welcome my cousin, who is live with us from North Carolina. North Carolina will surprise you every time. I mean, every now and then, and they'll go blue
Yes,
every
they
now and then they'll go blue. But now that my cousin Esco is there, hopefully we can get some of that blue out there. Do you feel welcome to the show, Unapologetic? I think this is your unapologetic debut too. Do you feel obligated to
It
vote
is.
black?
I've been a co-host from the comments all this
Yeah.
time,
Yes.
all these years. So this
Yes.
is my first time joining you. So thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Do you feel obligated to vote black when you vote?
No, I don't feel obligated to vote black. Um, but I do feel a sense of
a sense of
not
what?
making the wrong decision for black people, right? When I vote, and sometimes responsibility for not voting the wrong way for black people. And what do I mean by that? Sometimes my ideals or what I might think might not have anything to do with the average black person, right? And I'm not saying that I'm not average, I'm including myself, but I might say, oh, I think this way, which might not be the opinion of my people. But I don't ever want to be in a position where I get so far removed from my blackness that I don't make the right decision for the greater group, if that makes sense.
Okay. That makes plenty of sense. And thank you for being our female panelist for the night. We might have some others jump in and out during this time. Before we opened up the studio, we kind of talked about uh, the MSG rally in New York. And Josh was affected by it more so the rest of us, but they say it was kind of it was a replica of some Nazi stuff back in the day. There was very nasty comments made by comedians and others there. Josh, what was your opinion and on what happened the other day?
Didn't watch that rally at Madison Square Garden. Uh, I wasn't interested, so I don't have an opinion on it.
Okay, okay,
I, oh,
go ahead. Jamal, what was your opinion on what happened the other day at Madison Square Garden?
So I actually did happen to watch the entire thing. I'm interested. Trust me, I'm interested. I want to know. I want to make the most informed decision about voting for this election as possible. So I was interested in hearing what Josh had to say. You said that he had some personal stake in it. Are you Haitian, Josh?
No, I'm not Haitian. I'm American. I'm American with a tent.
Okay,
You know what I'm saying?
okay.
No, it's just no, I didn't have the opportunity to watch the rally or catch any other news. I think what good with men was that I was affected by the rally today in DC because
Oh,
because of the traffic, the 20,000 people that that affected me.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So I had to skedaddle out the way so I could make sure I wouldn't be logged in. But no, I didn't get an opportunity to see the Trump rally. I heard about some of the alleged offensive comments by comedians, but once again, these are comedians. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you? I hold them. I hold them. I let them. I provide comedians more leeway. When it comes to making certain alleged offensive statements, because if it offends you, that's part of the comedy. It's a little truth in the comedy as well. So, you know, I don't know. So I didn't watch it at all.
all right. Ian Chappelle, what were your thoughts on the MSG rally? Were you in the building?
All right. That's a valid question, I guess.
Oh, well done, Sir Goodwin. Well done. Well, thy good and faithful servant. Well done. No, I was not there. There's no correlation between that and the Nazi rally of 1939, I believe the year is. Because there have been DNC conventions there. Jimmy Carter had one, Bill Clinton. The comedian, just like Josh said, was a comedian. Were some of the jokes tasteless? Probably. But a lot of the humor is in the offense. So, we're entertained by offensive things. I guess that's just part of the human vulgar nature. But there were a lot of Jews that were there. There were a lot of people that the Nazis would have zero affiliation with that were there at that rally. So I don't see any correlation between the two aside from the location.
Okay. So I think that it's time to just kind of set the record straight before we get to some of the topics that are heavily discussed on the ballot for this year, and why we vote for who we vote for. Then our views will kind of correlate with what we say. So for me, I know that there's no way in hell I could vote for Donald Trump. Um, just just first of all, he has nothing to do with politics. He is a buffoon. He is nasty. He says nasty things about all other people other than white people. He seems to have no interest in what America is supposed to be about. Um, he's a businessman, and just just it's just no way I could vote for a man, a person like that. Um, I'm not completely sold on Kamala Harris, but right now she is the best candidate for and the best person for the presidency to run this country. If we have to pick, I guess John F. Kennedy Jr. is the other person, or we can write somebody in maybe. But it's just no way I could vote Trump. Um, Josh, you were here last Wednesday. And hopefully you all are subscribed and watching Unapologetic on all podcast social media platforms, and you gave on how you were going, and that was ago. So maybe things have changed. Josh Jackson from the DMV, how do you intend to vote on this day?
I tend to vote anonymously, not publicly. Actually, I have already voted. I participate in early voting in my state. Uh, and I not so much, I know the presidential aspect is consequential, but also, there were other issues that were on the ballot in the state of Maryland as well. Because if we do know, we are a system of checks and balances. And even though people have opinions about things that come out of candidates' mouths, or say that policy is something that's applicable to me, a policy will only go as far as Congress allows it, unless you want to use the executive order of the pen. And even then, that can be blocked up in the courts. So I'm paying attention across the whole spectrum. I've already voted for the president. I mulled over it for a while. I skipped the presidential slot and went to all the other ones, the courts, the school districts, the county elections, and also the Senate and the congressional elections. And then I just felt so much anxiety and tightness in my neck. I had to go through all those and then come back to the presidential slot, and still was like, ugh. Like, still sat there for like 5 to 7 minutes with like this great weight on my chest before I, finally put something on there, and it turned in my ballot.
So why don't you just kind of describe quickly what was the scale? What did you like or dislike about Trump, or like or dislike about Kamala Harris?
Well, of course,
Well,
when it
I have
comes
to
to
say this is Kamala.
Is what?
Kamala.
Well,
Oh,
well,
Kamala.
well,
Kamala.
well, well. One thing that, as you touched on, one thing that would detract me from Trump is the character and the behavior. It's not very presidential, but it's also very indicative of where our politicians are at. His behavior is not outside of what you may see other legislators in our government portray. When it comes to Kamala, it's frankly the lack of substance, and in terms of her policies. Her policies don't really apply to me or benefit me or align with me. So, from a policy standpoint, that's my issue with her. And then also, I have a feeling if she does win, that she will be kind of a lame duck president, because the House will be so tightly close within the margins that most legislation that she would even think of doing will probably go and die in the Senate, be filibustered. So that's my issues with both candidates. And also on the foreign policy side, I feel that Trump is strong in some areas, but then there's other areas in the foreign policy where, he can be a little shaky. But I do agree with him that, the most important aspect is that we're closer to, a nuclear fallout than we were 30 years ago. If I feel like we're back in that Cuban Missile Crisis stage now. And I do appreciate the fact that he is acutely aware of that and feel that nuclear proliferation is, part of his agenda. So.
Okay, why don't you give me some of Vice President Harris's strong points?
One of her strong points is that she did serve in the Senate. And that is a crucial aspect of our government. Like I said, that is where legislation kind of goes to die. So maybe she knows how to move and maneuver through that. as well. Another aspect is that she's been in an administration, so she will understand the public policy and the public administrative side of being president. That means selecting the 2,000 senior executives that are going to be, putting forth various policies and enforcing laws in our administrative agencies. So she's familiar with that. So she knows that, okay, I got to appoint cabinet officials, not just cabinet people, also senior executives, deputy directors to kind of do things within all the various agencies and stuff. And also, as a lawyer and a former legislator, I feel that her skill and intent on drafting executive orders might be, she might be ahead of Trump in that aspect. Now, whether she has the willingness to use that pen is another thing. But those are the positives for her. And also, she seems, she has the character and a temperament that you would want to see in a president as well. But sometimes you have to, when you're dealing with the likes of, Putin and Kim Jong-un and all this, the Taliban and Pakistan, it's like, do you want to handle them with kick gloves, or you want to let them know that you with the smoke? I don't know. So, those are the aspects, you ways and means on both candidates.
Okay, we're going to go down to Georgia. Reverend Dr. Ian Chappelle, which way have you decided to vote, or are you still wavering? Go ahead and let us know.
Well, like Josh, I have already voted. I voted. My wife and I voted on her birthday on the 16th. So
Happy birthday, Rita.
Well, thank you. I will tell her, as one, I appreciate the birthday greeting. Thank you so kindly. But you already know which way I voted. I've been a registered Republican for over 20 years now. So I have my, just like Josh, I echo a lot of what he said. We read from the same book. Trump's personality. I ain't crazy about New Yorkers already. And he is the epitome of a New Yorker, and but that aside, I'm not voting for a personality, I'm voting for a policy. And internationally, the world was quiet when he was president. Now, that was for several reasons. One reason was Putin, Kim Jong-un, who, by the way, Kim Jong-un has now moved 10,000 troops into Russia, which is, another problem. But all of them were quiet, and it's because they couldn't put their finger on Trump. They didn't know what he would do. He's over here making deals with the Taliban, and the Taliban are not shooting Americans because he's showing them a picture of the house and said, if you shoot one, I'll kill you. So now, is that diplomatic? And does Kamala Harris have more diplomacy? Of course she does. She has the tact. But like Josh said, the experience, and then I'm afraid it will just be 4 more years of Joe Biden. Because when asked the question, she didn't say that she would do anything differently. So why would we expect anything different? Because she can't separate herself from the administration that she's still currently attached to. So, but all that aside, I voted for Trump, Vance, gladly. This is my 3rd time voting for them. And if there's a 4th time, even though there won't be, I'd do it again.
All right. So we're going to go to the lone female on the panel, North Carolina by way of Chicago and Murfreesboro. So
I'm a West Side Chicago. So yeah, I can't disclose who I voted for because of the kind of job that I do. But what I can say is that I did have some trouble as trying to vote absentee ballot. I filled out the form in early September, and I never got the ballot. So I ended up having to do it in the last hour again, right? And of course, what I can say here is that whatever party you're assigned to is in that application for the absentee ballot, right? So I can't speak to if it was deliberate or not. I just know I never received one, right? So that's been something that happened there. I will say that, I think America has a hard time with women. I think America has a hard time with Black women in authority. I just don't think as a country we've gotten there yet. I'm a Black woman that has sat at several tables and was allowed to talk, but nobody heard me. So I do think we have trouble there. I think Donald Trump, for those folks that are for folks that are supporting Donald Trump, I think they like that cowboy style. And this is no disrespect to anybody that's voted for Trump, but we were a country 20 years ago watching Jerry Springer, right? And that was sensationalized. And so I think the more outlandish a person is, the more we sometimes can have an adoration for those people, right? When I think about foreign policy and nothing happened under his administration, he was only the president for 4 years. It takes time, right, to be able to make moves or whatever. So there are things that have both Republicans and Democrats have done over the course. I'm in my late 40s that I've been able to vote and that I didn't approve of or I didn't agree with. But I do think the way this political environment is unfolding is highly concerning. I don't think anybody can feel 100% good about the decision they made in the poll, whether you vote for Harris or for Trump. I don't think we have a really good option here. And I'm afraid of what might happen for my kid. I'll be cool, right? So I think that we have to understand. I think when you asked me earlier, do I vote Black? And I took that to mean, do I just vote Democrat straight, right? And I said no, but then I said the next statement was, I do try to vote for the betterment of my people, right? So, am I a Democrat that way? Nah, I'll vote. I'll tell a story, you guys, because I was talking crap about New York. I lived in New York and New Jersey for a while. At that time, Chris Christie was not crazy, right? He made a lot of sense. It wasn't until Trump became president where Chris Christie started talking crazy because I think he thought he had an opportunity there, right? But if you go back to the old Chris Christie, I mean, he was doing stuff like shutting down the tunnel and the George Washington Bridge. I mean, look, I lived through it. But at the core, I really think he was a different person, right? Or his political view was different. So I'll never be ever pledged to one political party. But I think in this election, we've seen a lot of racism. We've seen a lot of hate to call Puerto Rico, and this is not the first time Puerto Rico got, I don't know if I can cuss on here, but, essed on, crapped on. I don't think that's fair. I don't think Haitians eat dogs or cats. I don't think it's funny. So I'll end by saying, I think we need to look at hardcore facts, right? And leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good stuff, and we definitely value and appreciate your opinion coming from like you said, late 40s. You've been around for a minute, and and voting for a woman. I mean, it could just, for some people, it's just, oh, she's a woman, I'm voting for her. But I thank you for giving us that outlook. Jamal, you have a black mama, you got black sisters, a black daughter. How are things looking for you come November 5th at the polls?
In every election then and in between then, and I'll continue to. Black people can't afford to just vote for color. I don't think that's a luxury of ours. It doesn't work for us, and so I know that I haven't voted, unlike some others on here. But my wife and I are planning to go and vote tomorrow, and we're proud to do that. quite frankly, I am ambivalent about it as well, not knowing exactly who I want to vote for. I know that Trump is a guy that he says a lot of things that I don't agree with. But this is America, and we have the First Amendment, and we should be able to say what we want to say. However, as the last Esco just said, I don't necessarily agree with what happened at the rally. I happened to listen to the entire bit that the guy did. I don't agree with that, and I don't think that has place at a political rally. It does have place at a roast, and so we shouldn't confuse the two, right? Trump is somebody that I do believe that if it weren't 2004, and if he weren't the candidate, I would be voting Republican this time around. I'm somebody who votes both ways all the time, but this is a year that I probably would be voting Republican if it weren't for him being at the top of the ticket. For me, he's not somebody who represents the country. He's not somebody from what he showed. I don't think he'd be able to bring this country together in a way that I would be approving of. So even though I have not decided who I'm going to vote for, I do know that I'm not going to be voting for him. His words and actions are just somebody that I don't approve of. So again, I can't vote for him, even though she's not somebody who sold me on that I should vote for her. So that's where I am right now.
So let's stay kind of sort of along these lines. A friend of mine just sent me something on Instagram saying that the Taliban has banned women's voices in each other's presence. They can't say certain things from the Quran in front of each other. They are protesting, and that they in some cases they can't leave home without a male presence. So, and here in America, it's more about women's right to give birth or abortions and just the woman's body. So, Shannon, why don't you kind of expound on that, and how would that make you vote?
I mean, yeah, I think like you, Tony, I have a daughter, right? And I don't think my daughter's personal health should be something decided by politics, right? That's a personal decision. That's a moral decision. That's whatever your convictions are. I don't think anybody has the right to say. You could think it might be wrong for a woman to have an abortion or to take birth control, but you shouldn't have control over whether or not that person can make that decision, right? So I think that that's a significant thing. Look, I'm a woman, I'm a girl. I'm talking to a panel of men and no discredit to the men. I'm not saying you have no idea.
We wanted you here, though. We wanted you here. We wanted your voice here.
I wanted to be here. I still got to have a cup of champagne. But I think that should be a personal decision. I think we don't have the right to vote for if I should be able to take birth control or the morning after pill. There's nothing to do with who's in political office. And so I think we have to be careful about that, whether we agree to it or not. I'm not saying that I'm for it. I'm just saying that's a decision that's a more intimate decision to make, not a thing for politicians to make a decision about. So that does weigh heavily on me. It weighs heavily on, because I'm late 40. I'm not having no babies, right? I don't think. But my daughter, she should exercise the right to protect herself. She should be able to exercise the right to use birth control if that's what's appropriate for her. Those are decisions that, as her mother, I can't make for her as she becomes a woman, right? So why should the state or the government make those decisions for her?
All of us here have daughters.
Yeah.
All five of us. So, Ian Chappelle, how did that factor in for you in your decision on how to vote?
Well, it weighed heavy because I'm fiercely pro-life. So, um, and I will say that's one thing that I'm not crazy about Trump, because he doesn't go as far as I'd like him to on the issue of abortion. You know, he overturned Roe, and so it's no longer federal; it's at the state level. And like I said, as a pro-lifer, I would appreciate if he had gone further, but I understand, because he's not a conservative; he's a pragmatist. So he plays to whatever's popular. He's a popularist. So he caters to the pro-life group, but he doesn't take it all the way. And which is one reason why I don't vote Democrat, because that's one of the reasons, because of that. And having a 25-year-old daughter, the argument of legislative morality, we do it all the time. We tell you that it's illegal to, you're arrested for cocaine, for meth, for any litany of drug that you can think of that the government would tell you can't do in your own body. Because you can easily make the argument you're not hurting anybody but yourself, which is legitimate. With the issue of abortion, there is another body that's involved. So, we have to be, because that's a slippery slope. We have to be careful. We tell people when you're driving, wear a seatbelt. Well, honestly, if you fly out of the car, if you rear end someone at 70 miles an hour, you only killed yourself. Who else are you hurting? But it's a law that we legislate safety on. So as a pro-lifer, that's one of my grave disappointments with Trump, is that he's not, in my mind, pro-life enough in legislating for the unborn. But that's my stick.
Okay, Ian Chappelle, I'm gonna stay with you, and we're gonna go to, this is not necessarily border control, but I have World War III down on my notes, and you just said that North Korea sent troops to Russia. What's that all about?
Well, you know that Russia has a vested interest with Ukraine, as we all know, and we've been watching it, and now Zelensky has. They're fighting with Russia. We all know it's a losing battle. I mean, they're not going to get Crimea back. They're not going to get the Donbass region back. So now Putin is having dealings with North Korea, and he is emboldened to where now North Korea and Russia are coming together. And I think it seems that they're moving to go on and put this Ukraine issue to bed, that they just want to just squash it. And now's the time to do it. I think when I was on here with Josh last time, he gave a wonderful explanation about China and Taiwan, and now how they've moved ships over there near Taiwan, because now they're emboldened. And so we have these instances all over the world now. But that's something to be very concerned. And now you see Israel has attacked Iran. And they killed Soleimani a week or two ago. Yeah. So we have a lot of things happening, and strong leadership is needed to kind of negotiate this.
What if Trump? You voted Trump. Trump gets. What do you foresee happening with that situation?
What I foresee with Israel is he's going to tell Israel, look, go in and wipe out Hamas and do what you have to do to destroy Hezbollah in the north. Just do it, and do it quickly. Mm-hmm. As far as Russia goes, he's going to tell Putin, you're not getting anything else from Ukraine. You're not going to annex Ukraine. They're not going to be a part of the old Soviet bloc. Those days are dead. They died in the Cold War. So that whole reculmination of the old Soviet empire that's dead. Now, but I don't think Zelensky is going to get back the regions that Russia has taken.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, yes, yeah, so Josh shaking his head. No, yeah, those are go, and those regions were already Russian speaking anyway, and so they welcomed the Russia. So which was very interesting. And Taiwan, Trump is going to tell China. He already had all these plans with China. He's going to tell China, you're not doing anything with Taiwan, because China's already said we're going to take that back into the motherland. We're going to absorb Taiwan again. And Trump said, no, you're not going to do that. We'll arm them before that happens, and we'll send our ships into the Sea of Japan first. Mm-hmm. So but but that's the ugliness of global politics.
Yep. Jamal, you're vested in the region of Israel. You spent many years over there while serving the country. What are some of your thoughts on, and what do you foresee happening, whether Trump gets in or Kamala Harris?
Well, I did spend a couple years there living. I lived in both Jerusalem and Tel Aviv for 2 years I was stationed there at the embassies, both, embassy and consulate. And so I really don't see this ending very quickly. And I quite frankly, I don't see Trump being able to end it no more than Biden is. So it's interesting to me that I lived there when the Israelis pulled out of Gaza Strip in 2015, and so I saw Jew on Jew violence, and under Ariel Sharon, and so now I'm saying Bibi Netanyahu, which I knew this would happen. Quite frankly, just living over there, being as you said, vested in that. I knew it was going to be that they were going to kind of go in a way that nobody else would be able to stop. And quite frankly, you can't tell the Israelis that this is not their land and that they're defending their homeland. Quite frankly, whether it's Hamas or Hezbollah, the Yemenites are attacking them. So it's really a difficult situation, quite frankly. Whether Bibi's not going to stop, and he's not going to stop until Hezbollah, Hamas is eviscerated, and unfortunately, there are going to be a lot of unintended consequences to that. The American people, no matter who is in charge, is not going to be able to leverage any power over Bibi, because they're going to do what they want to do, quite frankly. And it's sad because we give them billions of dollars every year and we have no say so in the matter. So that's where I stand on it.
Okay, thank you for that. Josh, if you don't have anything to add to what's going on overseas, let's come back over here to the United States, where our borders have not been secured the way a lot of people have liked, and has probably caused a lot of people to vote red, vote Trump, because of the people who have come from Venezuela and all those Latin America places. And I mean, we have Ukrainians here too. Lots of Ukrainians have come over. I'm pretty sure some Palestinians have fled the scene as well. So you talked about that last week, Josh. What you got for us?
First of all, how you gonna skip over my favorite subject? Foreign policy is my thing. I can talk for hours on foreign policy and history now, because I see people see situations. I see a chessboard Unfortunately, the players are nowhere near as skilled as the statesmen were back in the day, with Thatcher and all those other folks, going around. I feel like we got the JV team of diplomats going on right now. But I'll speak on the border situation. I think that it's an issue of national security, and I think the president is well within his right to close the border as an issue of national security, because there have been documented instances around the country, New York, Chicago, Colorado, Los Angeles, where public safety has been compromised on account of undocumented migrants crossing our border in an illegal manner. So not only is it a security issue, but it also tests the fabric of the country. It raises the issue of the identity of America and also the identity of Black America. It raises the issue of that because, Chicago, my city, the most beautiful city in the world, is being affected by it,
It is.
in terms of like the high school that my little brother used to go to, Wadsworth Elementary, was closed and then was reopened to, shelter migrants. And my city once again has run in the deficit because of ill-managed public funds, inappropriate contract management, and also New York is also falling to the, is falling, victim to that. So I think that it's a big issue, but most importantly, I feel that the leaders that we elected make it harder than what it is in terms of their lack of courage and wherewithal and legislative skill to handle these matters, because they're well within their power to kind of lock the border down, and or on the governor level, be like, just like Abbott shipped them, from Texas to here, the governor can be like, we don't necessarily have the resources, we can. If I was governor, I would do something about it, So that's just how I feel, and I think that's one of two major issues in this election besides the economy, immigration. So that's all I have on that. I'm done.
Josh, just to piggyback on what you said about Margaret Thatcher, and I'm sure you being a history buff, or for me, when what she did with the Falkland Islands,
Yeah,
and she sent those ships way over there for that small, that wouldn't have done anything to the British economy, but just that small infraction, she nipped it in the bud and did it with class and with and strategy, amazing strategy. So just that you brought that up, I thought that was
they called her the Iron Lady.
yeah.
Just to piggyback, go back to what you were saying. I know Goodwin gonna hate me for this, but Taiwan is not the Falkland Islands.
Right.
Taiwan is actually valuable to the American economy because we get all of our chips
Absolutely
from Taiwan. And we have to win the AI battle because AI cannot be operable without the chips that we get from Taiwan. And Taiwan is
what type of chips are you? Can you be specific in the type of chips that you're talking about? Because I'm hungry. What type of chips?
They're not poker chips.
They're not poker chips. We're talking about computer chips that you place in your computer chips that are placed in
your automobiles,
automobiles, supercomputers, and not only is Taiwan the top manufacturer of high processing chips, China is the main exporter of the raw materials that's used to make these chips. So, that little small island can cause a serious economic impact without some type of American intervention. Me personally, I wouldn't even know how to get involved in that. I would not. China has they have a one China policy. So if they have already executed military exercises around Taiwan, they've been doing exercise and blockades around the city and stuff. it's a touchy situation because they can chokehold and really hamper our capabilities in terms of technology and AI advancement if they really just cut the spigot off when it comes to Taiwan.
So not going to.
But Jamal, it can happen. And to Josh's point, you're talking about something that would upset the global economy. I mean, the stock markets all over the world would be impacted. I mean, it was impactful when they gave Hong Kong back, and that was just on paper, because Hong Kong is physically there. Yeah. But if these people, what they are our number one economic challenger, or, a geopolitical threat, if you want to call them, even though Russia would be that too.
Not well,
but China, if they got hold to that would be. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's all right. Good. We'll try to fast forward on foreign policy. That's all right.
But I just love the Thatcher rep. And I'm sorry, last time I was talking to you, Josh, it was the Gallipoli campaign, and I said another word. I said Tripoli, Gallipoli, and I thought about after the fact, and I appreciate you not correcting me, making me look stupid on the podcast. But thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Esgo in North Carolina. You have anything to add to this before we move on?
The only thing I'll add is this: Palestine and Israel have been at war for a long time before they were even Israel, right? And I don't think Donald Trump or anybody is going to end that conflict, right? The land they've been fighting over that land for years, for decades, centuries at this point. I think it started in the 1800s with Zionists, right? So we can go back that far. So I don't think anybody in this election is going to be able, from this campaign is going to be able to resolve that. That'll have to play out the way it does. And historically, what we've seen is that it stops, right? And there'll be peace for 4 or 5 years, and then the flare up. It's going to continue. I don't see any policy stopping that or anybody being able to control that. I do think as AI, and I'll speak to that part just briefly, I do think there is a disruption. We saw the disruption in the chip or the semiconductor and chip business with the supply chain during COVID, right? It's the reason why our car prices are astronomical. I paid $40,000 for a Honda CR-V, right? Because there's a chip shortage, and so that's what it is. As AI becomes more sophisticated, we won't rely on these chips as much, right? It's for physical products, right? You have these cloud services that'll be able to bypass that and do other things in the future. But in the short term, the next decade or two, we are relying on chips, and then so that will shift who we rely on heavily. I also think it's the same talk, right? We had the Cold War. We were anti-Cuba until we weren't, right? Russia has always been something that we've discussed. It's the same players, right? And I don't think we really considered, for example, we didn't consider Iran or Iraq being the problem that they were, right? Until they became a problem, right? We had the Oliver North situation, and then we had the Taliban go there, and then we start talking about them again. Now we're not talking about them at all. We're talking about Taiwan and China. So I don't think America is ever going to be in a position, no matter who's president, to resolve those conflicts. And that's my point. As far as the border, and I'm from Chicago, I lived in Humboldt Park all my life, right? And so we always had this immigrant problem, or this migrant problem, not immigrant, migrant. Chicago's been a sanctuary city since 1982, and we have the great Harold Washington to thank for that. What's happened now is there's been this heightened sense of media coverage, and now everybody's in a frenzy. In Humboldt Park, and migrants are coming all the time. If you remember the lady that was in a church seeking refuge, right? And she was fucking up the traffic on Division for me. So nothing has changed. Do they come, the Venezuelans come in this drove? That's a new wave, but we always had migrants coming to Chicago. And any of the sanctuary cities. They're not just in Chicago, New York, or DC. They're in Colorado. They're in any city that's a sanctuary city. So is it a problem? Yes, because they're unhoused, right? Are they causing the violence? Absolutely not causing the violence. Like we know the West Side and the South Side is being violated by not the migrants, right? So I think what this administration or the previous administration has done in this election has done is kind of made this like these people are coming here and creating crime. These people are coming here and having creating a homelessness problem. These people are coming here and they don't have jobs, and they don't necessarily have, a skill set, right? Versus folks that come from other countries. But I can't say that Donald Trump closing the borders or anybody, Kamala closing the borders is going to make America safer.
When
Because
you say
the folks
Republicans
that are terrorizing America are not Venezuelans, right? It's always a different group of people. The problem in Chicago specifically is Brandon Johnson, right? Not appropriately managing, the crisis.
Yeah, Mayor Mohawk.
wouldn't you say that it's the Republicans that are really trying to make it seem like this is the problem, so to help them win the election, Shannon?
Well, I think it's a bipartisan effort to make this look like it's a problem, right? Donald Trump started with the wall. We never gave a shit about migrants or immigrants until it was a wall being built, right? Then we started to pay attention. There started to be a conversation. We started having an opinion based on this. This always existed. And if you lived in Pilsen or Humboldt Park specifically, this always existed, right? There were centers as a kid, I remember, where they were centers built on North Avenue, east of Pulaski, to help immigrants become acclimated to the city. Like they got them jobs, they got them green card, like that. Those programs always existed. So some of this is sensationalism, right? And then the other part is that's what America is, right? This is where you come when you leave your country. It's just what it is. So I don't know if that's a real problem. I think we've created a problem, or the media has created a problem.
Okay, Josh, you're going to enjoy this. I just like the geographical part of it. But Russia and China, they were playing around over there near Alaska not too long ago. The Chinese sent the balloon that somehow made it across the United States. Um, the Russians, no, was it the Russians? The Russians were in Cuba, so they were close to Florida.
Just now.
You said what?
Just now.
Yeah. So, Josh, is this some type of, are they trying to show us something? Are they trying to tell us something? Are we on the brink of something? Should we be prepared? Should we be worried? I don't think anything will break off on our turf, but what is your opinions on these chess moves, as you would say, that the Russians are making?
I mean, I can only go if I was president. I would be prepared, because when if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. That's just what it is. And Cuba and Russia have had ties and relationships with each other since the Cuban Missile Crisis back in the Cold War in the 60s. And Russia and China have been conducting, military operations in and around Alaska for, kind of doing dangerous, air encounters for quite some time. I just hope that the cables and the channels of communication don't close off, because all it takes is just one plane to go down, or one missile to go off, or one wrong thing for escalation to happen. And that's why I feel investment in the military is important, because you have, our, spoken enemies in our backyard. You have Russian doing their military exercises in Cuba. You got China doing their little military exercises on Taiwan, and China and Russia are doing, bomber surveillance in Alaska. And then you also, let's not forget, China owns the Panama Canal.
Right.
And they also got investment in Venezuela and Brazil. So they have, if something were to happen, they control critical imports and infrastructure and trade routes for raw goods and materials on this side of the globe. So it's just an interesting situation, and like I was saying earlier, it's intriguing to me, but it's concerning that we don't have leaders that are seem to be up to the task of handling these issues and putting the country in a position where we can project strength and not just, you know, my favorite foreign policy phrase, you know, walk softly and carry a big stick.
I agree with you totally, Josh. I think that we're so focused on the other countries, right? We're talking Taiwan and China. We forget about the control that they have on this side of the globe. And one of the things that you mentioned that folks don't talk about enough is, first of all, when we talk about sensationalism and media giving attention, I did not know until 2 years ago that Raul was no longer the leader in Cuba, right? This new guy that's leading Cuba hates America, right? Yeah. And we don't talk about that at all. We talk about Cuba and they don't have any cash flow. We forget to talk about this guy who hates America, right? And when did Raul lose, when did that regime switch over? The other part is Russia has always provided fuel to Cuba, and they continue to do so, right? So even as this Ukraine war is happening, we see gas prices rising. Russia is still funneling that. They're going to give Cuba whatever they need because they're proximity to the United States, right? They're 90 miles from Florida. So we have to keep that in mind. The other part is and this guy that's in control now, every time America does something, he reacts, right? So Joe Biden sent some troops into Guantanamo Bay last August because I was going to go to Cuba. I don't know if you remember that. And so I pulled out, right? Because then Putin sends ships to Havana, right? And I was like, I ain't got time for this shit because nobody cares about black people or black women, right? So I definitely don't want to be the girl from the West Side in Cuba nobody gives a care about, right? So I didn't know. I pivoted and went to Jamaica.
Just Jackson to get you out.
Yeah, right. We'd have had to do something like this. Free Shannon. So I pivoted and went to Jamaica. Had a great time. But those things are important. These balloons flying, and it's not a Donald Trump thing. It's really like America's borders are not protected in that way. We're talking about Venezuelans and stopping Mexicans. You got balloon, and they did it multiple times, right? But you got to think about the proximity Alaska is to Russia, right? And we don't consider that distance, that geography, what that looks like. You mentioned the Panama Canal. Yeah, that's a big deal. And so when we talk about protecting the borders, we get cloudy in the smoke and mirrors about migrants. That migrants ain't the problem, right? It's these other folks that are positioned or jacketing themselves to attack America from any direction.
So my question is, there is a choice this election. Do we trust one of the other individuals who will be leading their parties, their respective parties in this? Do we trust one or the other to lead this fight or to protect us as a whole? Do we trust Kamala, or do we trust Trump? I mean, who will protect us? I guess that's my question on the end of all of this this talk of foreign policy, right? Yeah. So who's going to do it?
I don't think
that out there.
I don't think, and honestly, that's why I can't get upset when somebody says they voted for Trump, or somebody talks bad about Kamala, or somebody wants to vote for Kamala and they hate Trump, because neither of them have really proven that any of them are capable of it, right? But I don't like vendettas, right? And that's the thing that I didn't like about the Clinton administration, with Hillary specifically, when she went into, and I'm not going to go into too much politics in that, but when she went over into and started fucking with Gaddafi, right? So
that wasn't her final choice.
Well,
that wasn't her final choice.
That was Bose.
She was in the room when it happened, right? So I say that to say, I don't like folks that have vendettas. I want you to be clear thinking. I want you to be open-minded enough that you can research and then make a best decision, right? If you already come into this situation with your mind already made up, that's concerning to me, right? That's concerning. And I think all of us on this call said that we're just not just Democrats because we're Democrats, or we're just not Republicans, except for I think Ian, you might have said you're just Republican because you're Republican. but I think we all kind of said like we do what makes sense in that time, in that moment, right? Ian, there may be a time where you, although you're 20 years Republican, where you might be like, I have to do something different, right? That happens all the time, right? It comes up. So I don't want anybody with a pre-made decision or vendetta or a point to prove when it comes to foreign policy in charge or making some decisions that affect that in that way.
Okay. We're gonna come on back to the United States. Josh, what you got? You got something quick?
No, I was just trying to piggyback off the answer to Jamal's question. Is really that foreign policy, just like with domestic, it's a really, really hard issue to kind of debate on which one is best. For me, in terms of Trump and how he kind of renegotiated trade deals and bogarted those trade deals, that was a positive thing. And how he gonna tell companies like, hey, you're gonna manufacture products in America or you're gonna pay a tariff. But when it comes to appointing diplomats over, via the Secretary of State and having those communication lines open and putting people in play that really know how to, negotiate and have the relationship building across the globe to advocate for America and American values. I see Kamala as being the more experienced legislator on doing that. But that's one aspect. I wish I could just pick and choose different parts of them and just put them in there. But it's really hard to kind of balance both of them out in terms of their foreign policy, because both have good and bad attributes, and the world is an on fire chessboard right now. So that's all.
January 6th is a very important date in American history now. But before that, a good friend of ours, Josh and Jamal, and even Ian Chappelle, Kenesia Jackson, that's her birthday.
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm about to say. That's the only important. It's Kenesia's birthday.
Yes. So when I see the news and I see ballot boxes set on fire, it kind of takes me back to January 6th, where Trump and the Proud Boys were they were a disruption, violent disruption at the Capitol, and they're already back at it, in my opinion, with tearing down these ballot boxes in some of the known blue states. Jamal, does that kind of do you kind of agree with that?
January 6th does, as a law enforcement, and I don't speak for my department at this point. I'm private, but it's something that kind of took the cover off of individuals who proclaim to be law and order. In my estimation, if you're law and order, you are law and order whether people are sacking the Capitol or Black Lives Matter are burning cars in Chicago and out west. To me, the people who were willing to give January 6th individuals a pass and kind of throw the book at Black Lives Matter individuals who burn police cars and causing lawlessness around the country. They want some bullshit. They want some bullshit. And so I think that racism underlied that, quite frankly. Somebody who says, I see the people who pissing on Nancy Pelosi's desk, bursting into the Capitol, willing to give them a pass, and in the same sentence saying, well, these guys who were burning police cars in Chicago, New York, Seattle, that was a problem for me. And that kind of took that for me said, and let's be honest, the Republicans are willing to give those people who, including Trump, and that kind of gives me pause about him. Let's give them a pass, but let's, in the same sentence, say that Black Lives Matter people are to go to hell. That's a problem. I can't pass on that. I cannot pass on that. There's a lot of racism that underlies that for me. So people who conduct lawlessness as a police officer, people who engage in lawlessness have to be jailed, bar none. And so that's a problem.
What about, so do you think that that is a direct connection to the people that are burning these ballot boxes ahead of this November 5th election?
I don't know that people are burning ballot boxes. I know there's a lot of misinformation out there. What I do know is that President Trump, I can't get past the fact that he will not concede the election. I can't get past that fact. I can't get past the fact that he contested the election and the Supreme Court itself would not take up the case. And most of the people that he elected, or not elected but appointed, they wouldn't take up the case. So I know there's a lot of misinformation out there about that. And so I'd like to hear what Ian has to say about that, because to me, I can't reconcile the two. So,
okay. January 6th. You said, okay. Well, let's start with all these trials came up, and that was one of the issues, was January 6th. Was it sedition? Did he try to overthrow the election? And I find it very interesting that he wasn't charged with that. Now, he gave his speech. Should he have been more proactive when the people went down there? Absolutely. Waiting for 2 hours and not saying anything, that's irresponsible. It's irresponsible. There's no doubt about that. And the person that died was shot by a cop there. She had her business crawling in the window. I mean, I would have shot her too. All right. But, and the guy, and they walking around, putting their feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk and all that's stupid. And I think that I have no problem with them going to prison for trespassing, because that's not how you do nothing. That's not how you do nothing.
Do you think that they're responsible for these ballot boxes being set on fire, Ian Chappelle?
No, sir, because it's funny, I just saw something on that, and one of the markings on there was Free Palestine. So ain't no Trump supporter. No. Look, here's the thing. For the ballot boxes on fire in Washington I'm not asking about ballot boxes being set on fire. What I'm asking about is very specific, where the fake electors, the plan that they had erected to kind of usurp the election, that the Supreme Court would not take up, and not only Supreme Court, no other court in the land would take up. Like, is that something that gives you pause for somebody voting for Trump? No, because did the same thing happen with who was that? Was it Gore and Bush? No, the 2000. I voted in that election. That's not Gore conceded the election. He didn't move to ask people. I agree. But the Supreme Court took it up. I mean, it's not unprecedented that the court take up, these kind of instances. Okay. And they voted for Bush in that case. Yeah. This is that they would not take it up, and they did not find anything. And not only them, but other courts found that there was no irregularities that were large enough. Let me be very specific about that. There were no irregularities large enough that there would constitute a to turn over the election. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, with I forget the name of those ballot machines. Yeah, and he had them stupid lawyers out there saying that there was a smoking gun. Yeah, there wasn't.
nothing rose to that. The evidence did not rise.
So why does Trump continue to harp on the fact that if Republicans are so law and order, why don't they accept the ruling of the Supreme Court and other bodies of judicial system? Why can't they say? And quite frankly, if my problem with them is that if they won, there'll be no problem. If we win, there's no problem. However, if we lose, we're sowing seeds of distrust in the system.
The same thing happened with Hillary Clinton when she lost.
She showed up. She showed up to President Trump's inauguration.
Yes. However,
why didn't Trump show up to the inauguration?
Oh, I'm sure pettiness. I'm sure because that's one of his character flaws. Hey, absolutely. However, she's been sowing seeds of misinformation concerning that she really won, but she lost because of racism, misogyny. Take your pick. So she's been doing that forever. Okay. So, but and it's interesting. Generally, Republicans aren't the ones that cause this kind of discourse. We normally are quiet and we go back and we don't do all of that, at least in recent times. And now
Trump does.
Yes, he does, because we haven't seen this kind of uproar since the Tea Party, and the Tea Party is tame compared to this.
Well, they've been. I mean, yeah, okay.
Just generally speaking, as far as going out there and being verbose with that.
And you all have kind of moved towards this, and our final topic that we have to discuss before we end here tonight is the Supreme Court giving presidential immunity, police immunity, and the consequences of that for the Black community and the generational impact. I'm going to open up the floor for anyone to just kind of, take a stab at that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the court is stacked at this point, right? And so I think whatever agenda that Republicans, or I don't even want to say Republicans because I don't mean that. I think the agenda of Donald Trump is supported through the Supreme Court because he stacked it. I'm a product of a law enforcement officer, so sometimes my perspective is a little skewed to some people like me. I'll say, but I don't think there should be immunity. For
the police or the president.
No, my daddy was a Chicago police officer for almost 40 years, and that doesn't exempt him from the law. Had he murdered my mother, how do you get immunity for that, right? So I think we have to be very careful putting people above the law. I think we all have a responsibility, and although President of the United States is a privilege, it is the citizens that become that, right? And so once you start putting one or anybody above the law, then you don't have law and order. So I think we have to be very conscious of that. Police need to be held accountable. And that's coming from a person that's not anti-police, because I lived in a house with a police officer. But I do think that you got to have, that's the whole judicial system, right? Checks and balances. Mm-hmm. Once you take that away, then now you've got chaos.
Mm-hmm. Josh, you're out there in the DC area working and all of that good stuff. What's your opinion on the Supreme Court?
I don't know if I become one of these small, I don't know. The Supreme Court definitely has a political element to it.
Of course it does.
They're essentially politicians in robes. I don't agree with necessarily stacking the court,
right?
Or adding more judges to it or anything like that, because we're already in unprecedented political times that will break another barrier for us, in terms of a new normal when it comes to police immunity. I'm not too concerned. I'm not concerned about that issue on a federal level because I know that states' rights, individual municipalities, they can regulate and legislate their own police department as they see fit. So on a local level, you can add a ballot measure and just say, no, I'm not going to give you eminent qualified immunity as a police officer in the city of Chicago, and therefore you won't have it. So it's certain things that I feel like that.
But that's Illinois. Chicago, that would never happen. But what about Florida, right? Or situations where we've seen other things.
And that's a good question because somebody asked me that question early this evening about when it comes to women's reproductive rights, and I was like, I live in Maryland, and that was actually on the ballot issue. That was a constitutional amendment proposed for Maryland in terms of reproductive rights. And I mean, the states do have the right; they are sovereign in themselves. So just because it's in Illinois, I mean. And Florida's a different country, so it's funny you brought Florida up, but
trash.
I mean, at Florida, once that give their police officers I mean, we already have kind of like an unspoken thing about as being a black person riding through Florida, hey, so I mean that would just add to it.
That shouldn't be the case, though.
You say what?
It shouldn't be the case. We shouldn't be leery of riding through different states, no more than a white man and black woman should be leery trying to get married in the state of Virginia, which was the last state to afford individuals the right to do that. We shouldn't.
Actually, it wasn't Virginia.
That 14th Amendment equal.
Pardon? I said I think it was Oregon and Washington State. I think they were the last. They still have an anti-interracial marriage state law on the book. One of them two states.
Okay. Well, okay. I thought it was Virginia.
It was Virginia that brought it.
It was Virginia.
It was Virginia that brought
it.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that 14th Amendment, equal protection, and some might say it doesn't apply to abortion and this and that. But we should be careful, especially as black people, going down that road, because quite frankly, 13th Amendment, enslavement, maybe it's legal in Florida, so maybe all of us should move out of Florida. Qualified immunity is something that, as a police officer, I enjoy that protection. I do want to say that it is something that I do believe has to be tailored in such a way that police officers aren't getting away with murder, but also being very careful in that we have to make very split-second decisions. And I'll tell you that every community that I work in Chicago, and I work right now in a very impoverished community, mostly Black and Hispanic, there's no dearth of police calls in the community. So whether we can't speak for those people either, because they're going to call the police, they expect us to come, and they expect us to make those split-second decisions that depend on our training. And we should have immunity in that we've attempted to make the right decision. And that is where I think qualified immunity is mistaken, because we're only protected in that we've operated in the guidelines of our protocol. The moment we step outside of our protocol, we have to be accountable, and we are accountable to the law at large.
And Jamal, I think that exists today, right? We don't see police necessarily, and again, like I said, I'm speaking as a person that lived in a house with one. We're not seeing police being unjustifiably prosecuted for, excessive force. More often, we see it's justified once there's a police review, right? Or internal review.
Internal investigations. I got it.
Yeah. So, but when you start talking about immunity, when you start saying people can be immune from stuff, then that's a personal decision and it doesn't go through a complete thorough investigation. And so I think we have to be careful.
But it does.
But if you
familiar
are
with the Chicago police, quite frankly, we have more oversight than any other. I speaking for Chicago. We have more oversight than any other agency in America.
Yeah, but also let's be transparent. Like I said, I'm the product of an officer. Do you remember Pac-Man on the West Side?
I'm not. Look.
So I'm just saying that you can't say immunity for all.
No, immunity is not carte blanche immunity. What I'm saying is that as long as me included, and again, I'm not speaking for my agency right now, as long as we are operating within the guidelines of our agency, we should be offered immunity.
But you are. But that's what I'm saying. You are. As long as you're operating within your agency, you are automatically justified in your decisions that you make in those split-second decisions. It's when you don't, when you operate outside of that, when we see like a Laquan McDonald or the brother down in St. Louis, or or the little boy was a couple years ago who appeared to have had a gun, right? When he turned around, it looked like the little boy, and then so everybody was outraged. But when the review came back, it was like that officer was in his rights, and that's fine. Nobody, I'm not saying that shouldn't be the case. But when you start talking immunity, and if the president can say, Jamal, you killed 10 people off duty, but you're a Chicago police officer, right, and you're immune.
Yeah, no,
that's where.
But even the president has to make decisions that are unpopular, but may be within the scope of his.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sensitive.
Well, you're absolutely correct, because look, when presidents order military strikes,
go ahead and say
Bin Laden, Saddam, any of those, should they be charged with murder?
They can be, and they shouldn't be.
And
well, we're not talking about that. We're talking about giving immunity, right?
Well, yeah, but they're immune to prosecution.
The Supreme Court said.
Yeah,
that's what the Supreme Court said.
The Supreme Court decision was definitely, if you read the judge's decision, they were definitely mulling between qualified official acts and unofficial acts,
and personal decisions.
Yeah, and personal decisions. And the thing that was so unique about President Trump is that he has these rallies, so it kind of insinuates a gray area of whether he's performing a personal act or whether it's an official act. And they basically came to the conclusion, due to the fact that it's such a gray area, and that they don't want to hamper the person who was selected to be president to execute the office of the president in an event of emergency, that the president, as long as they're in office, are granted, blanket immunity for official acts.
Correct.
So
and they have to be official. Yeah, they're not personal.
Well,
it had to be official, but not personal. But the gray area, which is what Justice Roberts actually kind of writ within the decision, and I think also Justice not Thomas, but I'm thinking not Scalia, but it was another justice who was basically kind of saying that the January 6th, they highlighted that, like, is that an official act? They said, well,
Alito. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Alito.
Alito. He brought that up. He said, January 6th, an official act. He said, well, technically it was an official act because as the president, he does have the right to make sure that the election is fair and free.
Yeah, but if you my problem with Trump is this, that he seems a lot of times to be acting in his own personal interest. And I think that's why he was impeached a couple times.
Yeah, because it can be perceived as that, but his job title and his duties as president will require him and grant him the right to call the Secretary of State of Georgia and ask him for well, no, not do that, but actually ensure that
Well, that's what he was impeached for the first time.
To ensure that the elections were free and and this is the thing. So when the Supreme Court issued that decision, that wasn't just a Donald Trump thing.
Right.
That's for all presidents moving forward.
Oh no, no
Biden
doubt
can do
about
the
it.
same thing with this election.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. But it sets a dangerous precedent in that. Again, we can kind of, and as we were just talking about, Esco, that nobody's above the law. And I was really hoping that Republicans would kind of come to my aid on that nobody is above the law as the law and order party, including rogue police officers who quite frankly go put their knee on somebody's neck and allow them to die. I'm not standing against those. I'm not standing for those police officers either. No more than I can stand for a president who would do something outside of the scope of his office.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to go ahead. Go ahead.
Whether it's he or she, I agree to that 100%.
He or she.
And so I think we have to be very careful when we start coloring in those lines, right? Josh, you said it's gray. Joshua, you said it's gray. So when we start coloring outside those lines different colors, now we got a problem. And so I think the country evolves. I think we have to, make adjustments. But I think this was specifically done because of what happened as a result of January 6th. We never, Nixon was impeached, right? We never had this we never went to the Supreme Court for immunity before. So why are we seeking that now? Would be my question. But I will say this, and because it's very clear that I'm big, I don't necessarily falter one way or the other. I do have a problem with the economy. I can say that.
Well, Ian will speak up on that one because I know personally from talking to him that is one of his main reasons for wanting to vote in the way that he votes. I agree. I mean, who can agree that inflation is out of order and Trump, not Trump, but
sir, I went to Walgreens. Okay, my daughter had a fever, and I went to Walgreens, and my kid doesn't usually get sick. Typically, she's just not that way. And so she had a cough. I took her to urgent care, and that cost me $70. Okay, fine. They said she didn't have strep, she didn't have COVID, and I thought she had COVID because we had gone to I took her to see Stevie Wonder the week before. We were in the Coliseum in Greensboro, so I was like, "Oh, you probably got COVID from the
TV." She
loved it, by the way. So I have one parentingship 100% because my 12-year-old was like, "This was better than Beyonce." I was like, "What?" But yeah. So seriously, I take her to the urgent care. They can't find anything wrong. They tell me to feed her over-the-counter medicine. I go to Walgreens, and I have a picture on my phone. I think it was NyQuil. No, I don't want to misspeak. I'm gonna tell you exactly what it was. It was $54.99.
Wait, what?
$54.99.
Was it behind a locked cabinet?
No.
Chicago.
I'm gonna tell you. Now I'm in Durham, North Carolina.
Okay, because I was saying for $54.99, I would have just bought that water.
Yeah, this ain't Chicago.
I was like 54 for some NyQuil, $54.99.
How much NyQuil did you buy?
I didn't buy it.
Oh, okay.
And so some of the problems
that had to be a mistype.
It got to be a typo.
It wasn't, because I went to the second Walgreens, and I'm going to share with you, brothers, because I'm not making this up. Hold on.
$54.99.
Oh, we take you to be.
And so when I talk about the economy, and I will say, and that's why I said it when I opened up. Like sometimes, I don't just vote black, so I just don't vote Democrat because I'm black. But I do think about my people because I'm in a different situation, right? Yeah. And now all of us are. I get that, and I don't forget that. I'm very grateful. but I don't forget that. But even in my experience, when I see NyQuil, or I think this is NyQuil, hold on.
You know, that's more than the price of insulin. We might need Commodore to cap the price of NyQuil. Along with insulin. We can't see it.
Wow.
Wait.
This is the Walgreens.
That's the dual pack. $54.99 for the dual pack.
How many come in that?
A couple days before, I was in a Walgreens and it was $52.99, and I was outraged. I went back to a different Walgreens a couple days later because she was still sick. She turned out to have pneumonia, by the way. And it's $54.99. Now, if you look down further, it's other shit that's $29.99, $44.99. It's craziness. Now, what I do know when I talk about my people, sometimes when our child is sick, we'll get the most expensive thing, thinking that's the best product to use, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I think about a mother who might be a mother, not even single, a mother and a father, and they might be earning collectively $50,000 a year, and you got 3 or 4 kids, and then you pay, I feel like I'm talking like Kamala for some reason, but you pay $54 plus tax for NyQuil.
That's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
That's insane. That is insane.
That's craziness.
I want to go to Target because by my house that pack is like $14.99.
And agree. And even in Chicago,
$18.99.
Even in Chicago, that ain't as expensive.
Yeah. So that, when I think about the economy and how much I'm paying for just everything, I'm like, yo, this is ridiculous. But for that to happen, so my baby had a fever. I paid $70 for the copay at the urgent care, and they had nothing. They tell me about over-the-counter medicine. Now, I spent $75 because I paid $6 for the cough drops. I paid $14 for the chloroseptic, right? And then I had to take her to ER Friday, and that was another $375. Now, I got the $750. It's no problem for me. But
that's bankruptcy for a lot of people. People don't have it. People don't have that. And as a matter of fact, most Americans don't even have that $500. Most Americans don't even have that $500 in their savings. That's an issue. That's an issue. And when we talk about my 401k and my 529 for my kids and this and that, most Americans don't even know what that is. So we need to start at the basics. And so I'm kind of like I don't know. And the economy is the most important aspect of why we should vote, quite frankly.
I can share this. Also, I quit my job, right? And I knew I was going to move to Durham. It was all strategic. And I said, okay, I want to find a job. Now, I can tell you, I have papers from Harvard. I have 2 MBAs, and I could not find a fucking job to save my life. I just found a job by chance. And I have been looking for jobs since January. And I had been on interviews where I interviewed 8-9 rounds with folks. And I just found a job earlier this month. That's a problem. In Humboldt Park, so these are rich people problems. I ain't rich, but you know what I'm saying. But I have to think about my community when I think about that. I just can't be selfish in myself and say, well, I want a tax break, or because I am one of a family. Tony is my cousin. Sir is my cousin. It's only a few of us that are in the position where we are okay. I have to think about my sister, my cousins, my neighbor, my auntie, my uncle. My mama's cool because I got her. So that when I vote, that is my intention. Selfishly, I could vote a different way or vote a certain way to protect myself, but I'm not a selfish voter.
Okay. And in closing, Esco, we don't know which way you favor. You've already voted, and maybe you didn't vote. Doesn't matter. I feel like the politics of it all of this Republican.
The only reason why it don't matter is I voted in Illinois, and Illinois gonna do what it's do. But
they might have set the ballot box on fire. We don't know. I just think this is a lot of drama. Is this really necessary? Can Sir Goodwin lie? Can the best man win without these political parties? Is this necessary, Esco?
This is Jerry Springer.
Mm-hmm.
This is Jerry Springer, the 2024 version.
Mm-hmm.
This is all this is. This is Ricky Lake after school. This is
Mm-hmm.
all of that. And the unfortunate part is just like we were like, oh my God, I can't believe they said that. I can't believe they did that. I can't believe it's a man. All of that, we doing that now in politics, but this is real life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But that was but it was their real lives. Those people weren't actors on those shows in the beginning. Those were real people. And that was a real situation. And we made entertainment of it. We made a spectacle of it. People made millions of dollars on it. And it's no different today.
Esco, I thank you for joining us live from Durham, North Carolina, right next to great Duke University. I'm looking forward to make a trip out there to knock that state off. I've never been to North Carolina. And while you're out there, even though we don't know what you're doing in politics, you're just here for the show. Just make sure let's get North Carolina to turn blue. Just go vote November 5th. Turn blue.
North Carolina is very purple. I can tell you, I have seen plenty. I live by Duke, and
Duke is blue. Duke is blue. Duke,
yeah. I've gone to my uncle's house, who's just a little south of Raleigh. I don't know how familiar Raleigh and Durham are about 15 miles apart.
Home of Shirley Caesar.
And I didn't know that. And I've seen a sign for Trump bigger than I could have. It almost looked like if you're old enough to remember the drive-in movie projector, it was that big. So depending on where you are in this area, right, it matters. And so I'd be very curious to see how things shake out. I think North Carolina, Pennsylvania, are like Michigan and Wisconsin are states that are going to they're going to decide who the electoral college goes to. My hope is that our country moves in a different direction. I think I'll be fine, but for my kid and for our children, I think those decisions that happen today matter. I think we talk about we walk on the backs of those folks that came before us, right? So I think what happens matters, and so I just hope that whoever is the president, he or she, does the right thing.
Stay with us.
Comment is do not, and I'm not there. Please do not reelect Brandon Johnson. If it's any time Jamal to vote Republican in Chicago, do not. Brandon got to go. Brandon should have never been the mayor of Chicago. It's an age, it's a political affiliation, it's a level of gangster in Chicago that you got to be.
Yeah.
I said the same thing about Lori Lightfoot. I know people love her, God bless her, but she could have been a great mayor of Peoria or Rockford, but not Chicago.
Yeah.
And so my mama is still in Chicago. My cousin, he's still in Chicago, and my little cousins and stuff. We got to get somebody in Chicago that can clean Chicago up. I fled from Chicago.
Yeah.
Because Chicago was that way.
Ian, you can smile too. You from Chicago, buddy.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Chicago.
What'd you say?
Ian from Chicago?
Absolutely not. Born at Northside Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Shannon, so much. Stay with us. We're going to wrap up here. Jamal, you and I, but you have really been known to go door to door here in Illinois and Indiana. Recently, we made a trip up to Wisconsin to see Stevie Wonder, and we were door to door Wisconsin for Kamala Harris. And Wisconsin is a swing state, and we're going to a swing state this weekend to knock on some more doors to turn Arizona blue. So I know that you and your wife are going to the polls tomorrow, hand in hand. Love, Sister Whitlock. After listening to the opinions of Esco, Tony, who was with us for a little bit, Josh Jackson, Ian Chappelle, where do you think you're leaning towards?
Just a little bit of misinformation was just given. I did go to Wisconsin. I ain't knock on no doors for Kamala Harris. But you know what?
Stevie told you who to vote for.
Stevie did not. He said to vote. Stevie said to vote.
I concur.
I appreciate that about Stevie.
For Complex TV was just like go and vote.
Go and vote.
You see how the media goes and misconstrue your stuff.
Yeah.
What Stevie said, go vote. Y'all already know what side I'm on.
Yeah,
right.
And he said, he talked about love. It was like, okay.
Sir,
okay.
Sir, good when you spreading false news. Fake news.
It is fake news. Hopefully he doesn't continue that.
Stevie Wonder, like I want y'all to see it from my point of view.
Well. That's one of those jokes that was told at the Trump rally that we don't appreciate. No, look, man. I do. You got to go vote. You got to go vote. My wife and I are going to go vote. My wife is an alumnus of Howard University, and so
ain't you?
And I always say, you know it, and she corrects me every time.
Ain't no it.
I know. I know. She corrects me every time. But I just want us to go vote. I don't want any pressure on Black men on who they should vote for. So I'm not going to divulge who I'm going to vote for. But I think we should vote and vote in mass. And I think we should vote our economic, familial, and spiritual interest. And so I'm going to leave it at that. God bless you all.
I 100% agree with you, Mark, because that is exactly what was my guiding compass as I was traveling down that ballot. So, yep, I agree.
Ian Chappelle, the names on this live here, they're blue. And I think they're blue for a reason.
The tragedy of it all, but just to quickly piggyback off of Esgo, who she's given a lot of good insight as far as the economy. And why I appreciate Jamal so much. I had a great uncle from McGee, Mississippi.
Come on.
And and when we go and make groceries, as we do in Mississippi, you get 5 bags, and I know Esgo can attest to that, even in North Carolina, and you don't spend $100. $100 will make you mad, and don't get no meat.
No,
right?
2 bags. 2.
Yes.
I started looking around the back, see like where the bags at.
I'm telling they done ripped me off.
Yeah.
So my son said, Dad, we got to go make groceries. I said, son, we need more money than what we got. We can't make groceries with this. So that, and to echo Joshua, your compass and your pockets, and that will and that will drive you to make a decision. And let's go. Like I said, a lot of marvelous insight. If you want to change, you know who you need to vote for, because we've had 4 years of one way.
And I think, and I want to say this one last thing, Tony. I'm sorry, I can't call you Tony, sir. I don't want to hijack this, but I think what's very important too. I've disclosed, that I'm, a certain age. It's important that our kids keep this tradition. That we've lost all our traditions primarily, and so when we all have daughters, I don't know if you have sons or not, but it's important that our kids know to vote, because we're in a position where I think the last election in Chicago, local election, you had 31% of Chicagoans that were registered to vote to even vote, right? So when we think about that, I mean, even, no matter what side of the fence you're on, the right to exercise the vote is our civic duty. It is a privilege that Black people were denied for a long time. And so we still have to impress upon our children the importance of doing it. I don't give a damn who they vote for. You could write in there CeeLo Green. Fine. You don't did no, right? Then to not do nothing. And so when I look at social media, it's older people. When I say older people, people over 35 that are talking about the election. I don't see a whole lot of engagement of young people. And now Diddy's in jail. Who's gonna rock the vote? So just your children to exercise and participate. And I think a lot of schools around the country, I know my daughter, they did it in Chicago, and they've done it here down in Durham. They had a mock election. and she voted for somebody not in the presidential part, but the gubernatorial part that she didn't want to vote for. But she said, "Oh, but he's black, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then when she did research, she was like, "I don't want to vote." I mean, she really had some anxiety about it. So, impress upon your kids to vote. It's important. Get them involved in the process, or at least let them know that you voted, and and encourage them to vote.
All right. Well, I want to thank all of my guests, Joshua Jackson, Ian Chappelle, Jamal Williams of S-Go from all over this great nation for joining us today on the Unapologetic Podcast Politics Special. We are less than 7 days, 1 week away from a historic night, regardless of the outcome. And just go vote. November 5th, take a friend with you. And, at the end of the day, if Trump wins, at least he can't run no more. From what we think, he trying to.
Oh, well,
Yeah, he's trying to do it, but at least
we can't say that.
Yeah,
Hey,
because
look,
if he doesn't win, we know that he's gonna go start sleeping in the freezer with Joe Biden and Ruth Bader Ginsburg and trying to prolong his life as long as possible.
God puts everybody on the throne. God puts everybody on the throne. What's that? Romans 13. All men and women put on the throne is due to the Lord.
That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you all for joining us. Unapologetic on all podcast platforms, all social media platforms. I really like this group. Hopefully, after the election, we could set aside some time to reconvene and talk about our next president. And maybe you all are going to go to the Josh, you're right there. S-Go, you're right there. Maybe you all are going to go to the inauguration for Kamala Harris for the next president of the United States.
Absolutely not. I will be at home.
No, I'll do the postmortem.
Thank you all. Have a good night. God bless.
Thank you.
God bless.
Bless.
Go and see.